Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com. Today I have a card that features my own brand new digital stamp sheet, and I will leave a link where you can find this digital stamp in my video description below. It's available in my Etsy store, and I'm also going to leave you a coupon code if you're interested. Basically, here's a printout of what's included in the digital stamp. There is a boy sheep and a girl sheep, and you can resize it. So you see I have a smaller one there to the right. And I also have some sayings to go with it. You could easily type up your own sayings, but I just like to include a few puns if that helps you out as a card maker. And so I'm going to show you two different ways that I like to color these sheeps, and then we'll work in a New Year's card. This is to celebrate the Chinese New Year, as it is going to be the year of the sheep or the year of the goat, and so I'm making this for a friend of mine. I'm going to start with W7 and W5 to color the darker parts of the sheep, including the face and the legs. And I'm going to show a simple way to color the wool and then a way that adds a little bit more texture. So I'll take the W7, lay it out first, and then blend it out with the W5. With the W markers, especially the darker marker, you have to be careful of laying out too much color because it can bleed out, and it's a dark color, a little harder to get back in. And so you don't want to saturate the paper too much. And after I've layered that color in, I'm going to color the sheep's wool. I use W1 and W00. And this is because I don't want to leave it pure white. I want to add depth and dimension to it. So what I do is add just a little line of W1 all along the edges of the the wool, and then I just make a little curling motion, kind of like a circle, but not a full circle, more of like a C, and I blend that out as well. So I use the W1 for the line and for the little C's, and then I blend it out with the W00. To give it more of a woolly texture, the other option would be to start with the W1, making those C's. Do not make a line around it, just make the C's. And then when you blend it out with the W00 marker, instead of doing the typical kind of flicking motion with alcohol markers that you tend to see a lot, blend it out in a circular motion to give more of that texture of wool. And I found that it also gave a slightly lighter color in general than the other way, and I actually like that better for the sheep. But I'm comfortable with using both of them. Now, to get started with the card, I'm going to put the sheep to the side, and I know I'll be fussy cutting them out to use later. I have this stamp set from Verve that has a lot of different holidays in it, including Hanukkah, Christmas, New Year's, Diwali, and I wanted to use the Chinese lanterns mixed with the sheep. So I'm going to create the effect of some Chinese lanterns hanging in the background. I originally thought to use an oval die to give me a line, but I felt that the line that it gave me was a little too tight, and it caused the lamps to hang down more than I wanted compared to the scale of the sheep. So I decided to draw my own line. But if you're not comfortable creating it on your own, you could, of course, just use a curved edge of any object in your craft room. I use my Memento Tuxedo marker to draw the line, to trace over the line, and then I'm stamping with my favorite things, Black Licorice Hybrid ink, because I'll be doing a combination of Copic coloring, but also layering on some distress ink and stickles, and I just wanted a nice ink that would work with the Copics but be good with the other techniques. After I have my lanterns cut, like I said, I'm going to be coloring them with Copics, and so I want to keep some of my background white, but I will be adding a wash of distress ink in the background. I'm going to mask off the large circular part of the lanterns, because I want to make sure that my color in those areas is vivid and pure. But in terms of like the hook that it's hanging from, or the tops and bottom of the lanterns and the tassel, I'm okay with getting the distress ink on those areas, because I know that once I color over them, you won't really be able to tell that there was this pinkish reddish color underneath. I'm going in with a little bit of worn lipstick, and I'm just doing 2 large bands of worn lipstick to start with. I don't want to use just one color because I want some variation and interest, and today I'm choosing to use red because it's a lucky color in the Chinese culture, and so I'm going to use red and gold because that's what you see a lot with these kind of New Year's cards and other, Chinese decorations. I found that once I wanted to add a second color, spun sugar was too light, so I added in some tattered rose. And basically, I'm going to be creating a set of 4 stripes, but I don't want the stripes to be too obvious, and so it does require a lot of blending out and working with the inks and going back and forth between each ink color. If I had experimented with this, I might have chosen to use a red and a pink as opposed to 2 pinks, because I found that there was actually a big jump in the pinks in terms of worn lipstick being a lot darker than tattered rose. But I also knew that it would be important to dry the ink completely in order to be able to tell what the true color would be in the end, because sometimes they tend to be a little bit darker or brighter, more saturated when they're wet. And so I decided that I would dry it all with a heat gun, see what I thought, and decide if I needed to continue adding in color. But once it's dry, I actually like it, and I think it blended out pretty well. I'm ready to move on to the coloring. As you can see, I colored the tops and bottoms of the lanterns with a nice dark W7, and so you can't see the pink at all through it. And I colored the tassels in a dark red. So again, it doesn't really matter that there was pink underneath it. However, you see that area where I colored the gold, you can kind of tell that it's more of an orangey color because of the pink, but I'll actually be covering that with stickles in the end, so I'm not too worried about that. Now I'm going to color in the stripes of the lanterns. I'm going to do a little bit of blending here with an R46 and an R27 marker. They're quite far apart, but generally works out in the small blending area because I'm okay with them being a little bit of a stronger contrast. It also lends to the effect of it being rounded by leaving the lighter color in the center. Once I've colored all 3 lanterns, I'm ready to go back to my sheep and composing the rest of my card. I'm not worried about the other stripes in the lantern because I have planned to do stickles on top of them, and so I want that to be one of the last steps in my card because the stickles are going to need time to dry, and I don't want to have to worry about messing them up as I compose the rest of the card. So I want to use the Happy New Year sentiment, and I'm trying to decide about how I want to use the arrangement. If I want to put the sheep on the left or the right, how the sentiment's going to fit in, how the balance of the overall card is going to be. And I actually decide to go with the sheep on the left. Originally I thought maybe I would do it on the right because there was a little bit more room under that 3rd lantern as it was higher. But I found that generally I like the sentiment to be as close to the bottom right-hand corner as possible because it directs the receiver's eye inside of the card, which is your ultimate purpose. And so I'm going to stamp the sentiment onto a strip of cardstock, and it's just white for now, but I'm going to use my Copics to match it exactly. I found out in the process of making this card that I don't actually have any red cardstock, and so I wound up having to make my own in several instances, including this one. Now, the digital stamp on my Etsy store does come with some sentiments, but I did not include a Happy New Year sentiment because I wasn't sure how many people would find that useful, but I did think that it was kind of a unique special use for this critter at this time. To add a little bit more interest and to tie in the gold stickles that I know I'll be using because I do want to make sure that I add gold elements to this card, I have taken some gold glitter tape and I'm going to lay 2 strips of it down so that I can put my sentiment on top of it and bring attention to the sentiment panel and ultimately to the sheep that will also be resting on the sentiment panel. And this is a glitter washi tape that I picked up at Joann's. And it actually, the glitter sticks pretty well. It doesn't come off too much, and it kind of reminds me of the die cuts with a view glitter paper where it is very fine, soft glitter, and it doesn't rub off easily. Then I'm going to add my Happy New Year's sentiment strip on top. I've left room to the left to add the sheep, and I will be using some foam tape to pop the sheep off just for some added dimension and because some of the elements underneath it would cause some bumps there, and I want to just make sure it's a nice clean flat look. So like I said, I add that with some foam tape. The panel that I've been working on was cut with the Lawn Fawn largest small stitched rectangle die, which I'm sure is no surprise to people who watch my videos regularly. As I mentioned before, I did not actually have any red cardstock, and at first I was a little bit concerned about that, but then I thought, well, of course, I don't really need any color of cardstock because I can easily make the effect of any particular color, especially for a matte, just by running my Copic markers along the edges. You could also use Distress ink. I just used my Copic markers because they were already out, and in a sense a little bit less messy. So I don't think that you have to have every color of cardstock on hand, particularly when you're doing something like a matte where only a little bit of it's going to show. You can easily match it to your card with some other inks that you have, whether it be in marker form or color pencil, anything that you have to just give that little bit of color. And so I'll layer it on to the card base. Before I add the stickles, I did a wash of a yellow Copic marker on top of the other parts of the lanterns, because when I had just added the stickles and did not put anything underneath, I didn't like the way that the white poked out in some areas, that you could kind of still see it through the glitter, and I wanted to make sure that if there was any areas that where the glitter missed, it would be more of a yellow color and it wouldn't stand out too much, because the white really stood out because it didn't look like it was supposed to be there. And so putting that little bit of gold really helped, in my opinion. And so I'm just going to layer the stickles over it, and of course you're going to need to leave time for the stickles to dry, so I always do try to remember to do it as my last step. Same thing with glossy accents. And so that's it for my card today. I hope you enjoyed. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in purchasing this digital stamp, like I said before, the link to my Etsy shop is going to be in the video description below, as well as a coupon, so I'd love for you to check it out. And if you're interested in more crafty videos, and I have another one coming up with the same digital stamp, you can subscribe to my channel for more. I will also leave the other products in the video description below if you want to check them out. Thanks for watching. Bye.